Gold digger. The word rolled off my brother-in-law's tongue with a sneer, sharp enough to slice through the air like glass. My mom's palm came crashing across my face, sending me stumbling into the wall. The sound echoed in my ears before the sting even registered. And then warmth, wet, bitter. My sister-in-law spat on me. Hi everyone. My name is Marceline, I'm 28 years old. And I never thought I'd be telling the world how my own family tried to break me in my own home. Do you know what it feels like when the very people who raised you, the ones who should have shielded you from storms, become the storm themselves? Do you know the kind of silence that follows humiliation, where your heart is screaming, but your mouth refuses to open? I stood there against that wall, cheek throbbing, spit sliding down my jaw, while their laughter wrapped around me like a noose. She thinks she's someone just because she married a soldier. Without him she's nothing, Michael sneered. I wanted to scream. To defend myself. To remind them of everything I had sacrificed, everything I had endured. But my body froze. The betrayal cut too deep. They thought my husband was gone for months. Off serving, unreachable, unable to protect me. They thought they had a free stage to degrade me. To strip me down until I was small enough to step on. And then, the air shifted. A sound broke through their cruelty. The slow, deliberate turning of the doorknob. My chest tightened. Their laughter faltered. For a single heartbeat, silence held the room captive. When the door opened and he stepped inside, dust of the road still clinging to his uniform, they froze. Their faces drained of color. Because the man they thought was oceans away, was standing right behind them. And his first words, calm, sharp and cold, would leave them trembling. The door clicked shut behind him, the sound so final it felt like a verdict. My family, bold seconds ago, stood stiff, their eyes darting like guilty children caught red-handed. My husband's boots echoed on the tile as he crossed the room. His uniform smelled faintly of dust and travel, but his presence was heavier than steel. His voice came low, deliberate. Funny. I leave to defend this country, and while I'm gone, you think it's open season on my wife. My mom's lips quivered. She stepped back, but the wall was already behind her. My sister-in-law shifted nervously, wiping her hands against her dress like the filth she had just thrown on me now burned her own palms. And my brother-in-law, suddenly so quiet, no longer had a laugh left in him. I swallowed hard, my throat aching from words I couldn't speak. Tears stung not from their slap or spit, but from the ache of years of biting my tongue, years of trying to belong to a family that only saw me as an outsider. My husband finally looked at me. Not with pity, not with shock, but with a knowing calm that steadied me. His eyes, sharp as glass, slid back to them. Say it again, he demanded. His tone wasn't loud, but it shook the room. Say what you just called her. No one moved. My BL's jaw worked, his usual arrogance nowhere to be found. Maisel dropped her gaze to the floor. My mom's hands trembled against her sides. And in that silence I found my voice. My chest rose, shaky but determined as I whispered. They called me a gold digger. They said I was nothing without you. His jaw tightened. He didn't raise a hand, didn't raise his voice. Instead he laughed once, short, bitter, humorless. Nothing without me? He turned slowly, pacing before them. She built this house while I was gone. She ran every bill, handled every emergency, and never once asked me for anything except love. And you dare call her nothing? The weight of his words slammed into the room harder than my mother's slap ever could. Their faces twisted, searching for excuses for a way out. But my husband wasn't done. He stepped closer, eyes burning with a calm fury that made the silence unbearable. If she's nothing without me, then tell me, what are you without the money she put in your pockets? The roof she let you stand under? The name she carried with pride? They froze. And for the first time I saw fear where arrogance once lived. But little did they know, this was only the beginning. My mother's hands fluttered like broken wings. She tried to form words, excuses, anything that could soften the tension pressing down on the room. It was just a misunderstanding, she whispered. But my husband didn't blink. He simply tilted his head, waiting for more. Silence stretched, sharp and merciless. My SIL's voice cracked next. We didn't mean it like that. Like what? He cut in, his tone calm but laced with venom. Like spitting in her face. Like slapping her into the wall. His words carved through the room. No shouting, no theatrics, just cold precision. My brother-in-law finally stepped forward, puffing his chest like he could still play alpha. You can't come back here acting like some hero. We were just teaching her her place. She acts like she's above us. That was it. The words that had always lingered behind their eyes but never spoken so bluntly. Teaching me my place. I felt the sting rise in my chest again, not from humiliation this time, but from the bitter taste of recognition. They never wanted me as family. Not as a daughter, not as a sister, not as an equal. Only as someone beneath them. My husband's laugh was so low, so sharp it chilled me. Her place. He stepped closer, standing eye to eye with his brother. Her place is beside me. And your place, his voice dropped, is outside my door. Permanently. The room split in two, on one side my trembling family stripped of their masks. On the other the man who chose me when they never did. But me. I was still against the wall, shaking, heart pounding. Not because of fear anymore, because of the storm rising inside me. For the first time I didn't want him to fight for me. I wanted to fight for myself. I stepped forward, wiping my cheek where spit had dried, my voice steadier than I thought possible. You all think I'm weak. But I've carried this house. I've carried him while he was gone. And I carried myself when you tried to break me. Their eyes snapped to me, stunned. I had never spoken back like that before. And in that silence I realized, this was no longer just his fight. This was mine. And I wasn't done. The weight of my words still hung in the air when my mom's face twisted, half guilt, half anger. She clutched at her chest like my defiance was some kind of betrayal to her. How dare you speak to me like this? After everything I've done for you, she hissed. Her voice cracked at the edges, but her pride refused to bend. Michael muttered something under her breath, something about me being ungrateful. And my brother-in-law smirked, though his eyes flickered with unease. I took one step closer, no longer pressed against the wall but standing tall in the center of the room. My voice didn't shake this time. Everything you've done for me? Or everything you've done to me? The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Memories flashed, years of small cuts that never healed. The insults dressed as jokes. The backhanded comments at family dinners. The way they always introduced me as just the wife instead of by my name. The way my mother's love had strings, knots, and barbed wire. I wasn't just humiliated tonight. I was reminded of every bruise they had left on my spirit. My husband's hand brushed mine, just a touch, grounding me, but he didn't speak. He knew this was no longer his moment. It was mine. I turned to Maiho, her lips pressed tight, eyes darting. You spit on me like I was dirt. But tell me, who was the one begging me last month to pay your rent when your bills were overdue? Who kept your lights on while you sneered behind my back? Her face drained, jaw tightening, but she said nothing. I shifted to my brother-in-law, his smirk gone now, his fists clenched. And you, laughing at me tonight. Do you remember whose car loan I co-signed because your credit was trash? Or should I pull the papers and remind you? His chest deflated, his eyes dark with shame. Finally, my gaze locked on my mother. My throat tightened, but I didn't stop. And you? The woman who raised me only to tear me down. You think a slap will silence me? You think love means control? I've bent my spine under your hand my whole life. But tonight. I drew in a shaky breath, my voice breaking into steel. Tonight I stopped bending. Their faces were pale, trapped between shame and fear. And for the first time in my life I wasn't the one trembling. The power in the room had shifted. But what none of them knew was that my revenge had only just begun. The room pulsed with silence, every eye on me. Their shame hung heavy, but shame alone wasn't enough. Not after everything they had taken from me. My husband spoke then, his voice quiet but firm. You think you've broken her. But you've only revealed yourselves. He reached into his duffel, pulled out a folder and placed it on the table with a dull thud. My stomach tightened. I knew exactly what it was. Inside were receipts. Bank transfers. Copies of bills. Car notes. Medical expenses. Every single thing I had quietly covered for them while they mocked me. My handwriting was on every signature line. My SIL gasped softly. My brother-in-law's jaw locked. My mother's lips trembled. I walked to the table, opened the folder, and let the papers fan out like cards on the table of a high-stakes game. This is your reality, I said. My voice was low, steady, every word measured. The gold digger you spit on? She's the one who kept you afloat. The one you laughed at tonight is the reason you've had heat in your homes, food on your tables, and roofs over your heads. My husband's hand rested on my shoulder, not to speak for me but to steady the storm raging in me. I turned to them, meeting each pair of eyes. And tonight it ends. No more loans. No more signatures. No more bailouts. The accounts are closed, the ties are cut. My brother-in-law sputtered, panic cracking through his bravado. You can't just. I already did, I cut in. My voice sharp, final. My SL's face fell, her voice trembling. But, we'll lose everything. My laugh was bitter, humorless. Everything you never appreciated to begin with? Then maybe you'll finally learn what it feels like to stand on your own. And my mother, her eyes wide, tears gathering, took a step toward me. Sweetheart, you wouldn't. I held up a hand, stopping her cold. Don't call me that. Not tonight. Not after the slap you gave me for daring to exist. Her lips quivered, words dying before they could form. For the first time the roles had reversed. I wasn't the one begging for scraps of respect. They were. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder and tucked it under my arm. This isn't anger. This is clarity. You wanted me small. But all I ever did was hold you up. And now, I paused, letting the silence twist the knife. Now you'll feel what it's like when I stop carrying you. The fear in their eyes was louder than any slap, spit, or insult. But the real reckoning? That was still ahead. The fallout came faster than even I expected. 2 days after that night the calls began. First my SIL, her voice trembling, sugar-coated with desperation. Marceline, we didn't mean what we said. It was the heat of the moment. The landlord's threatening eviction. Can you just help us this once? I let her words hang in the air, her pleading breaths scratching at my ear. Then I answered, calm as stone. You spit on me. I won't pay for your roof while you treat me like dirt beneath your feet. I hung up. Next was my brother-in-law. His bravado was gone, his tone tight, laced with panic. The car, they're about to repossess it. I need you to co-sign again just to extend the payments. I cut him off mid-sentence. You laughed while I was on the floor. Drive that laugh to work. Maybe it'll get you further than the car I saved for you. And then came my mother. Her voice wasn't panicked. It was laced with manipulation, the same kind she had used my whole life. You're really going to let your family suffer? After all I sacrificed for you? After I carried you in my body, gave you life? I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. You carried me into this world, yes. But you didn't carry me through it. I carried myself. And I carried you when I shouldn't have had to. That ends now. Her silence was deafening before the line went dead. Within a week, everything unraveled for them. My SIL's eviction notice was pinned to her door. My BL's car was gone from the driveway, towed in the middle of the night. And my mother, once the matriarch who commanded respect, was suddenly the woman whispered about at church, her pride dissolving into gossip. Me. For the first time in years my home was quiet. My breath was steady. My reflection in the mirror no longer carried shame, it carried power. My husband watched me with a quiet pride, never once stepping in to save me, but standing behind me like a fortress I had finally chosen to lean on. But I wasn't finished. Revenge wasn't about destruction, it was about truth. And the truth was about to go public. Because I had more than receipts in that folder. I had proof. Proof of every lie, every theft, every manipulation they had used against me. And soon the whole family would know. The opportunity came wrapped in silk and champagne. The family wedding. Everyone would be there. Cousins, uncles, aunts, the people who always believed my mom, my SL, and my BL's polished lies. For years I had endured the whispers. She's just after his money. She doesn't really belong. She thinks she's better than us. They had painted me as the outsider, the parasite. And I had swallowed it silent. But not this time. When I walked into that ballroom, heads turned. I felt the sting of memory, my mother's hand across my face, my SIL's spit, my BL's laughter, but it only hardened my spine. My husband walked beside me, his uniform crisp, his presence unshakable. The speeches began, clinking glasses, laughter echoing against crystal chandeliers. And then, as if the universe had scripted it for me, someone asked the question. Where's your mom? Your sister-in-law? Your brother-in-law? The room hushed, curious eyes settling on me. I rose slowly, my dress whispering against the floor, my pulse calm like the ocean before a storm. I lifted the folder in my hand and laid it on the nearest table. They couldn't make it tonight. Probably busy figuring out how to live without the money they said I stole. Gasps rippled. A cousin leaned forward, confused. I opened the folder, spread the papers, rent checks, car payments, utility bills, all in my handwriting, all signed with their names. They called me a gold digger. Said I was nothing without him. But tell me, I looked around the room, my voice steady, carrying. Who's the gold digger when every dollar in their homes had my name attached to it? Murmurs exploded, disbelief slicing through the air. Someone whispered, she paid for all that? Another muttered, but they always said she used him. I turned toward the faces I had once shrunk under. I never asked for recognition. I never asked for praise. All I wanted was respect. And when they slapped me, spat on me, laughed at me, they lost the last chance they had to give it. The silence that followed was suffocating. For them, not for me. My chest felt light, my voice clear, my truth sharp as glass. And then, from the back of the room, I saw them, my mom, my SIL, my BU, standing frozen in the doorway. Late arrivals. Just in time to hear their empire of lies collapse. Their faces drained as the whispers grew louder, sharper. Judgment was no longer mine to bear. It was theirs. And in that moment I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply smiled, calm, almost kind. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't rage. It's truth delivered in the perfect silence of a crowded room. The ballroom was a storm of whispers. Every cousin, every aunt, every uncle who once swallowed their lies now stared at them with disgust. My mother's face crumpled, my SIL's eyes darted frantically, and my BU's jaw twitched like he wanted to laugh again, but nothing came out. They stood there, cornered not by me but by the truth. I didn't move toward them. I didn't need to. I simply stepped back, rested my hand lightly on my husband's arm and let the room do the work. The same people they'd manipulated for years now recoiled, their reputations unraveling thread by thread. My mom tried first. She's twisting things, she's making us look. But her voice cracked beneath the weight of the papers spread across the table. Her words weren't daggers anymore, they were ashes. My SIL reached for me, her voice high, desperate. Please, just don't ruin us like this. We'll lose everything. I looked at her, calm, steady. You ruined yourselves. The moment you thought cruelty was free. The moment you forgot that respect costs nothing, but losing it will cost you everything. Their shoulders slumped. For once they had no audience willing to clap, no stage left to stand on. The whispers grew and then, like a wave breaking, the crowd turned away from them. Conversations resumed, laughter picked back up, and my family, those who had slapped, spat, and sneered, were left standing alone in the doorway, invisible in the very room they once ruled. I exhaled, a slow, steady release I hadn't known I was holding for years. My husband's hand found mine, warm, grounding, real. Later that night, when the last song faded and the lights dimmed, I stood by the window overlooking the city. My reflection stared back at me, no longer the woman pressed against a wall, silenced and humiliated. I was free. And freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was simply the absence of their grip on me. My mother lost her pride, my SIL lost her security, my BU lost his bravado. And I gained something far greater. Myself. They had tried to bury me in shame. But shame doesn't bury a woman like me. It plants her deeper until she grows roots so strong no storm can bend her again. And that night I finally closed the book on them, with one single word echoing in my soul.